You know what breaks my heart? When someone apologizes for needing help. That's what happened today. Jack came home with groceries. His mother saw the bags and her first words were, "I'm sorry." Not "thank you." Not "what did you bring?" Just, "Sorry." For what? For being loved. Let me tell you what led to this moment. Jack sold his car 3 weeks ago. Not because he wanted to. Because his mother had mortgaged land that got caught up in a development project that fell through. The monthly payments were crushing them. So Jack sold the car, bought a motorbike, and told no one. Except Tien noticed. Of course she did. She's been selling grapefruits at the market, 5,000 dong for small ones, 10,000 for big ones, trying to help however she can. She bought the motorbike back for him, left it at his place. He hasn't touched it. "I can manage," he told her. That's Jack. Always managing, always carrying. This morning he met his friend Luan at a cafe. Luan just bought a new car. Sleek, expensive, the kind Jack used to dream about. They sat there with their coffee, and Luan asked the question everyone's been asking. "How's work?" Jack's answer was honest, painfully honest. "I haven't signed a single contract this year. No projects, no new business, just pressure and silence, and the weight of knowing his company is bleeding out while his mother's debt sits there like a stone in his chest." But here's what Luan said next. "You look haggard." Not "that's tough," not "hang in there." He said, "You look like you're carrying too much." And Jack nodded, because he was. So he told Luan the plan. The one he's been turning over in his mind for weeks. He's going back to the farm, the one he bought for Hang before they separated, before everything got complicated. It's overgrown now, neglected, but it has a pond, a garden, space to breathe. "I'll clean it up," Jack said. "Maybe by the time Hang comes back it'll be beautiful again." Luan didn't laugh, didn't tell him he was crazy to leave the company. He just said, "I support you." Then he offered to take Jack's unfinished projects. Handle them. Let Jack step away without guilt. That's friendship, the kind that doesn't need speeches, just action. But here's the thing nobody saw coming. While Jack was planning his escape to the countryside, Tien was at the market, not shopping, selling 2 baskets of grapefruits she'd harvested herself. She stood there in the heat, calling out to strangers, making 5,000 dong at a time. And with that money, she bought harvest baskets, big ones, 330,000 dong for 2, one large, one small, handmade, beautiful. For tomorrow, she told the old woman selling them, "I'll have new baskets for the harvest." She didn't tell Jack, didn't make a big announcement, just bought the tools they'd need for the work ahead, because she's already decided, whatever Jack's planning, she's in. After the cafe, Jack went to the market, bought ingredients. Real ones. The kind you use when you want to cook something that matters. Then he went home. His mother was upstairs when he arrived. Uncle Dung was sitting in the living room, waiting. They'd been discussing land. 2 plots Jack was considering. One for 450 million dong, another for 200 million. Both had fruit trees. Both had potential. "I prefer the cheaper one," Jack had told Uncle Dung earlier. "The house is small, but we can renovate. What matters is the land." Uncle Dung nodded. "We'll go see it tomorrow." But when Jack walked in with those grocery bags, the conversation shifted. His mother came downstairs, saw the food, and that's when she said it. "I'm sorry." Jack set the bags down carefully. "Mom, don't. I know I've lost all your efforts," she continued, her voice breaking. "The car, the money." "Mom," Jack's voice was firm but gentle. "The car is just transportation. What matters is that we're healthy, that we're together." Tien arrived moments later, breathless from the market. She'd bought sugarcane juice for Mom. Tried to call Jack but couldn't reach him. Her phone battery was dying. "I was going to cook dinner and call you," Jack said. "I know." Tien smiled. "That's why I came." And here's where everything converged. Uncle Dung stayed for dinner. Mom sat in the living room, sipping her sugarcane juice. Tien went upstairs to change. And Jack stood in the kitchen, surrounded by fresh vegetables and rice, and the ingredients for something real. He called up the stairs. "Today, let me cook for everyone. Let me show you what I can do." Mom tried to protest. "You're tired." "No, Mom. Today we eat together. All of us." Tien came back down. cooler now, ready to help. Uncle Dung settled into his chair, and Jack started cooking. Not fancy, not complicated, just food made with care. The kind that says, I see you, I'm here. Because that's what this meal is really about. It's not about the groceries or the recipes or even the taste. It's about Jack saying, without words, we're going to be okay. It's about Tien buying harvest baskets before anyone asked her to. It's about Mom realizing that maybe, just maybe, she doesn't have to carry her guilt anymore. And it's about Uncle Dung sitting there witnessing this family pull itself together one meal at a time. The kitchen filled with steam and the smell of cooking rice. Tien chopped vegetables. Jack stirred the pot. Mom watched from the doorway, and for the first time in weeks, she wasn't apologizing. She was just there. But here's what nobody's saying yet. What nobody's ready to admit. This meal isn't just dinner. It's a decision, a turning point. Because tomorrow Jack and Uncle Dung will go see that land, and when they do, everything changes. The farm, the city, the company, the life they've been living, all of it hinges on what happens next. Here's what they don't tell you about starting over. It begins with a meal. Not a grand announcement, not a dramatic speech. Just rice steaming on the stove and vegetables sizzling in the pan, while everyone you love sits in the next room waiting. Jack stood at the counter, knife in hand, and thought about everything he'd given up. The car, the contracts, the image of success he'd built so carefully, all of it gone. And somehow, standing here chopping garlic, he felt lighter than he had in months. Need help? Tien appeared beside him, her hair still damp from the shower. Just keep me company. She picked up a cutting board, started slicing ginger. They worked in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that says more than words. Then Tien spoke. I told Mom about the car. Jack's knife paused mid-cut. When? A few days ago. I had to. She asked why you weren't driving anymore. What did she say? She cried. Tien's voice was soft. Then she said she wanted to sell the house. Pay back the debt. Start fresh somewhere smaller. Jack set down his knife, turned to face her. We're not selling the house. I know. I told her that too. Tien met his eyes. I told her we'd figure it out together. That's what families do. From the living room they could hear Mom and Uncle Dung talking. Quiet voices, gentle laughter, the sound of people who've known each other for decades, who don't need to fill every silence with noise. She asked about you today, Mom was saying. About your work. It's been difficult, Uncle Dung admitted. But Jack has a good head on his shoulders. He'll find his way. I just wish, Mom's voice trailed off. What? I wish I hadn't been such a burden. There it was again. That word, burden. Jack wanted to go in there, to tell her she'd never been a burden. Not once, not ever. But Tien's hand on his arm stopped him. Let her talk, Tien whispered. She needs this. So Jack stayed in the kitchen and listened. You're not a burden, Loy, Uncle Dung said firmly. You're a mother who made a decision to help your family. The land deal went bad. That's not your fault. But Jack sold his car, and he'll buy another one. Or he won't. Either way, he's not measuring his life by what he drives. Uncle Dung paused. You raised a son who knows what matters. That's not something to apologize for. Jack heard his mother sigh. A long, shaky exhale that sounded like she'd been holding it for weeks. The farm might be good for him, she said finally. Get him out of the city. Let him work with his hands. It will be. In the kitchen, Jack and Tien exchanged a look. She squeezed his hand once, then went back to cutting ginger. The rice cooker beeped. Jack lifted the lid and steam rose in a white cloud. Perfect. He started plating, simple dishes, nothing fancy. Stir-fried vegetables with garlic, braised pork that had been simmering for an hour, a clear soup with winter melon. Tien arranged everything on a tray. Should we call them? Not yet. Jack had one more dish to make, the important one. He pulled out eggs, tomatoes, scallions, his mother's favorite, the one she used to make for him when he was young, and the world felt too big. He cracked the eggs into a bowl, beat them until they were golden and smooth, heated oil in the pan until it shimmered. You remember the first time she made this for you? Tien asked. I was 7. I'd failed a math test and was afraid to tell her. What did she do? Made me this, sat with me while I ate, then said, numbers on a paper don't tell me who you are. The eggs hit the hot oil with a satisfying sizzle. Jack added the tomatoes, watched them break down into sweet, tangy softness. The smell filled the kitchen, bright, nostalgic, home. "That's why you're cooking today," Tien said quietly. "You're telling her the same thing." Jack didn't answer, just plated the eggs and tomatoes with care, arranging them so they looked like something made with intention. Because they were. He carried the dishes to the table one by one. Tien followed with rice bowls and chopsticks. Uncle Dung stood to help, but Jack waved him off. "Sit, Uncle, you're our guest." Mom came to the table slowly, her eyes taking in the spread. 6 dishes, more food than they'd had at one meal in weeks. "Jack, this is too much. It's not enough." He pulled out her chair. "Sit, Mom." She sat. Tien took the seat beside her, Uncle Dung across. Jack stood for a moment at the head of the table, looking at the 3 people who'd shaped his life in different ways. His mother, who'd sacrificed everything. Tien, who'd chosen to stay when things got hard. Uncle Dung, who'd shown up today not because he had to, but because that's what friends do. "Thank you for being here," Jack said simply. Then he sat down and they ate. The food was good. Not restaurant quality, but honest, real. Mom kept reaching for the tomato eggs, taking small bites, her eyes getting wet. "It tastes just like mine," she whispered. "I learned from the best." Uncle Dung ate with appreciation, complimenting each dish. Tien made sure everyone had enough rice, refilling bowls before they were empty. And slowly something shifted. The weight in the room lifted. The apologies stopped. In their place came laughter, small at first, then growing. Uncle Dung told a story about his own failed business venture 20 years ago. Mom shared a memory of Jack as a child, stubbornly trying to cook rice and nearly burning down the kitchen. "He was 8, she said, smiling through tears. "So determined, so serious." "Some things don't change," Tien added. They talked about the farm, about the 2 plots of land, about what it would mean to leave the city, to start something new. "The cheaper plot has more space," Jack explained. 2 hectares, fruit trees already growing, a small house we can fix up. "And it's near our current farm," Tien added. "I can help, I know the work now." Mom looked at her son across the table. "You're really doing this?" "I am. And the company, I'll finish the current projects, hand off the rest to Luan. Then I'm going home, Mom. Back to the land." The words hung in the air, not sad, not defeated, just true. Uncle Dung raised his water glass. "To new beginnings." They all lifted their glasses, clinked them together, drank. And in that moment, Jack understood something he hadn't before. This wasn't an ending, it was the beginning they'd all been waiting for. The dishes were cleared, the kitchen cleaned. Uncle Dung had gone home with a container of leftovers and a promise to pick Jack up early tomorrow to see the land. Now it was just the 3 of them, Jack, Tien and Mom, sitting in the living room as the evening settled into night. Mom held her cup of tea with both hands, like she was trying to absorb its warmth. "I want to tell you something," she said. Jack and Tien waited. "When your father died, I thought the world ended." Mom's voice was steady, but her eyes were distant. "We had nothing. Just this house and a piece of land I didn't know how to farm. You were 15, still a boy." "Mom, let me finish." She took a breath. "I mortgaged land back then too, to pay for your school, to keep food on the table. And I was terrified every single day that I'd made the wrong choice." Jack had heard pieces of this story before, but never like this, never so raw. "But you worked," Mom continued. "You studied, you got into university, started the company, bought that car." She smiled sadly. "I thought finally I can stop worrying about him. And then I sold it," Jack said quietly. "And then you sold it." Mom set down her tea. "And I realized something. You didn't sell it because you failed. You sold it because you're exactly the son I raised. The one who knows family comes first." Tien reached over and squeezed Mom's hand. "So I'm not going to apologize anymore," Mom said firmly. "And I'm not going to let you apologize either. We're family. This is what we do." Jack felt something crack open in his chest. Relief, gratitude, love so big it hurt. "Tomorrow we'll see the land," he said. "And if it's right, if it feels right, I'm going to buy it. Start over, build something new." "What about the debt?" Mom asked. "I'll handle it. Not all at once, but I'll handle it." Jack leaned forward. "The company still has assets. The house I was building, I can sell that. And the farm, if I can make it work, if I can grow something real there, it'll bring income. It's hard work, Mom warned. I know. The sun, the rain, the crops that fail. I know, Mom. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Your father would be proud. Those 5 words nearly broke him. Tien stood up. I should go. Let you two rest. Stay, Mom said immediately. It's late. You shouldn't ride home in the dark. I have my motorbike. Stay, Jack echoed. Please. Tien looked between them, then smiled. Okay, just tonight. Mom stood slowly, wincing slightly as her knees protested. I bought you medicine, Jack reminded her. Did you take it today? Yes, it helps. My arms and legs don't hurt as much. Good. Go rest, Mom. We'll clean up down here. She paused at the foot of the stairs. Jack, yeah, I'm glad you came home today. Me too, Mom. When she was gone, Jack and Tien sat in the quiet. Outside, cicadas sang their evening chorus. A neighbor's dog barked once, then fell silent. You didn't tell her about the baskets, Jack said. Tien shrugged. I'll show her tomorrow, after you see the land. You really bought them, the harvest baskets, 2 of them. One big, one small, 330,000 dong. She grinned. I bargained the woman down from 350. Jack laughed. Actually laughed. When did you become such a negotiator? When I started selling grapefruits for 5,000 dong each. You learn fast. He reached for her hand. You don't have to do this, you know. The farm, the countryside. It's not what you signed up for. What did I sign up for? I don't know. A guy with a company, a car, a future that looked shinier. Tien turned to face him fully. You want to know what I signed up for? A man who sold his car to help his mother. Who cooks dinner to say I love you instead of just saying it. Who's willing to start over from nothing because nothing is better than losing who he is. She squeezed his hand. That's what I signed up for, Jack, and that's exactly what I'm getting. For a moment he couldn't speak. Just looked at this woman who'd harvested grapefruits in the heat, who'd bought baskets for a farm she'd never seen, who'd chosen him when he had the least to offer. I'm going to make this work, he promised. The farm, the debt, all of it. I know you will. We will. Together? Together. They sat there as the house settled around them. Somewhere upstairs, Mom was probably already asleep, finally resting without the weight of apology. Tomorrow would bring the land viewing, decisions about which plot to buy, plans for clearing and planting and building. The real work would start then, the sun-up to sundown kind, the kind that leaves your hands blistered and your back aching. But tonight was for this. For sitting in a clean kitchen after a shared meal, for holding the hand of someone who chose to stay, for understanding that sometimes the biggest tragedy isn't losing what you had, it's forgetting what you still have. Jack thought about Luan's words earlier. We should live for ourselves and the loved ones around us. He'd thought he understood, but only now, sitting here with Tien in the house where he grew up, did he really get it. Success wasn't the car, or the company, or the impressive projects. Success was Mom sleeping peacefully upstairs, Tien's hand in his, a plan that felt like hope instead of obligation. What are you thinking? Tien asked. That I'm lucky, even after everything, especially after everything. He stood, pulling her up with him. Come on, let's get some rest. Big day tomorrow. They turned off the lights one by one, locked the door, climbed the stairs quietly so they wouldn't wake Mom. At the top, Tien paused. Jack, yeah, that meal tonight, that's what family looks like. Remember that when things get hard? He nodded. Would remember. The tomato eggs and the laughter and the way Mom finally stopped apologizing. The way Uncle Dung stayed not because he had to, but because he wanted to. The way Tien fit into it all like she'd always been there. This was the foundation. Everything else, the farm, the crops, the new life, would be built on this. Tomorrow they'd see the land, make decisions, start the real work of starting over. But tonight, they had enough, more than enough. They had each other. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like everything. The house went dark. Outside, the city hummed its endless song. But inside these walls, there was only peace and hope. So much hope. Because sometimes the best beginnings look like endings. And sometimes the biggest tragedy, the debt, the loss, the sacrifice, is actually the thing that brings you home. Jack closed his eyes and slept. dreamed of soil under his fingernails and fruit trees heavy with harvest. Of Tien beside him in the field, wearing those new baskets like armor. Of Mom visiting on weekends, finally free from guilt. Of a future that wasn't shiny or impressive or Instagram-worthy. Just real. Just theirs. Just enough.